Hi, I am Eriksson. So here we are in South Africa with the Table Mountain in the front, with Cape Town on the other side. And we're at the restaurant here, the Greenhouse. And we're here to meet with the chef, Farrel Hirsch, to hear about how he takes care of the South African produce and products and creates a 360-degree gastronomic experience. If you were to explain for somebody that's never eaten here and never been here about your style of cooking, what would you say?
I think African food is not very discovered, especially around Southern Africa or fine dining restaurants. So if you've got a fine dining restaurant here, they'll probably do Japanese, some French food, because that is the norm for fine dining. So what I've tried to do here is take African inspired dishes and add a little bit of finesse to them. So for instance, there's like how to make boekoms, which is a dried fish in Afrikaans. We do the same process as the boekoms. We cure it, we dry it, we smoke it. But then I use it as like a raw fish, as a sashimi style thing. Or the seafood potjie, which is a classic South African dish where you normally have seafood, a sauce and a starch. So I've taken those concepts and I've done a seafood, a sauce and a starch, but I've done like a tapioca chip with breaded hake and a steamed prawn at the table with a little yuzu cream sauce. So it's just taking that African concept and then just pushing it a little bit further.
How did you get into food in the first place?
Well, I sort of fell into it. It didn't happen overnight. I grew up in Nottingham. So I was born in Durban, grew up in Nottingham, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after GCSEs. And I met a couple of people who worked in restaurants, and they showed me like the Connaught Hotel in London, and I remember them shaving some truffles over my pasta and the smell, and I saw the kitchen and I took a tour and I was like, right, this looks like fun, I want to be in that kitchen.
So what in food was so special and that made this attraction to the kitchen?
I think it was a mixture of the adrenaline of the service and then the fresh produce of the food of what you can make. So you're taking something so humble like a potato or a courgette and you're turning it into something so amazing, and it just grabs the attention and the creativity. So you can be creative with food. You can do as you please.
How was your journey then into the professional kitchen?
So I've done quite a stretch of different countries and different restaurants. So I did 7 years in Nottingham, restaurants there. It was amazing, like the Rosettes, Michelin standard restaurants, and I decided I wanted to come back home to South Africa. So I was 22 and I moved to Durban. I did Durban for a year and a half, and I looked at the food scene in Cape Town and I decided this is where the best food is coming out of the country. So I did quite a few blocks around here. So I went to Aubergine Gardens, I worked there. I worked at Test Kitchen. I was the sous chef here at Greenhouse about 5-6 years ago. And then I did Southern Africa, I did game lodges, and I was in Seychelles, and Pete Tempelhoff called me up and asked me if I wanted to come back to Greenhouse, and I gladly obliged.
African concept and African produce and products. Where do you find the right product and produce to be able to create the dishes you're talking about?
So you gotta search for the produce here. There's a lot of stuff around Cape Town, like these small niche suppliers are everywhere, and if you just find them, you got to do that little bit of searching. But once you find that nice small supplier that's doing we've got a quail supplier that's right here in Hout Bay. She's got all the eggs and all the whole quails, and she looks after all our food on the poultry side. Same with the vegetables. If you want, there's another farm just around the corner. There's about two, one in Khayelitsha, which is very close, and there's another one in Hout Bay. So you work closely with the suppliers, and they have what they have, and we use what they have. So it's seasonal.
What are you specifically looking for in those produce and products from the suppliers around the corner here? Is it the taste, or is it the structure, or is it the origin of the product, or what's your trigger?
So there's quite numerous things that I look for. Obviously the freshness is, if it's coming from the farm, it should actually be as fresh as possible instead of it coming from, say, Johannesburg or another place where there is a farm but they mass produce it. So you want the freshness. Then there's also like the uniqueness of the product that within this area. So Table Mountain slopes that way. There's only some ingredients you can only find on Table Mountain, and there's nowhere else in Southern Africa you can find it. So it's the originality of the product, and then the flavor of the product you want uniqueness as well. So not to taste is not to know. So that like new things, someone might be from Johannesburg, but they've never tasted fynbos from Table Mountain, which is nice. And that fynbos has got a nice honeysuckling flavor to it. So when you find those flavors that are like foreign to you, I really enjoy that. It's one of my favorite concepts.
Many of the top chefs in the world, which you are one of, are working under the concept of no waste kitchen or nose to tail eating or even farm to table cooking. What's your take on that?
I think there's a lot of ways you can look at sustainability in kitchens and food. So it goes from like carbon footprint. So let's not order those really nice micro veggies from Namibia because they've flown over there using fossil fuels to get it across here. Then there's the other concept of doing farm to table. So yes, the farm is within 10 kilometers of the restaurant and it's less carbon footprint in coming here. Then there's also looking at local fisheries. The smaller fisheries will do smaller numbers on the trawling for anything, for the mass production. So if you go with the smaller fisheries, they're looked after, it's fresh fish, and you're supporting local businesses. There's also like our garden. So instead of ordering all the herbs that we need, we've got it all within our garden. So all we're doing is we're planting, we're looking after the soil, we're looking after the plants, and then the staff also learn how to look after the produce because they're picking it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are in a great location here. We're in the middle of the fields or in the bushes here. Are you planning to build a bigger farm?
So we try to spread out as much as we can. So we've got a vegetable patch and we've got a herb patch. A lot of the other stuff is indigenous plants that we try not to encroach on because they are local to the area. It would be nice to get a bit more of a bigger vegetable garden to sustain our restaurant, but it is something in the future I'd like to do.
And now you're the head chef in a fantastic restaurant, the Greenhouse here. Fantastic location, always packed with people here. I hear tonight it's full the restaurant, and you have great new ideas about your dishes and your concept of sustainability is in place. Mm-hmm. Where will you go from now?
So there's a couple of ideas that I'd like to do with the actual restaurant itself and the dining experience. So, when you come through for a tasting menu, it's 2.5 hours. It's a long time to sit in one place. So we're in a 200-year-old building and it's a heritage site, and I'd like to include the whole building with the food. So start off your journey with 3 different rooms in the restaurant. So you start off with canapes and cocktails in the bar, and then you move into another older room, and then you start your middle course there, and as you come through to the restaurant, you have your main course and desserts on this side. And we'd like to open up the rest of the kitchen so the guests see who's cooking the food. I think it's important to see what's going on, and you get that nice relationship with the guest. But it also, the whole experience is not sitting down for the same place for too long. I think you need to be a little bit more active when you're walking around. It's nice to walk around when you're eating food and look at the art. And we've got amazing grounds, amazing art, amazing building. I think it's good to include it.
Guests arriving at the restaurant, they are expecting a 360-degree gastronomic experience. On which pillar will you build such an experience, you think?
What I like to do is, I like a lot of theatre in the food, but I don't want that to overcompensate for flavour. It's got to have both. So as long as you've got that theatre in the meal, if someone says to you, I had the best meal at Greenhouse the other day, and they'll say, what was your favourite dish? They won't be able to tell you the favourite dish, but they'll be able to tell you how they felt at the table, and they'll leave the restaurant feeling overwhelmed with what just happened and that experience. It's not really a meal, you come for an experience here, which is good.
If you were to give an advice to a young person that wants to become a chef like yourself, what would you say?
You need to go look for the best head chef in your town. The best head chef in the best fine dining restaurants, and work your heart out. Work as hard as you can, because to only be a good chef, you have to work under greater chefs.